First, this message is for everyone. It is not gender specific. So everyone needs to write this down. Being a good person does not make you a good partner. Clear, concise, honest communication, action with and behind your words, and continuous effort makes you a good partner. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion, no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast. Greetings and salutations, my beloved Passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion, no last necessary, because the first name says it all. I am your Get You Right guru. This is a space where I issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or what was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have considered, to A, expand your thinking, and B, for you to become a better version of yourself, for yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I'll never rob you of your right to feel what you feel. Same way I won't sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so you can operate as your highest and best self. Right now, there's a lot of buzz around gentle parenting and how effective it is. And guess what? Since a lot of us didn't get gentle parenting, we need to be gently parenting ourselves. Then we know how effective it is. So we're going to start today's episode with respect to that, with loving on ourselves the same way we do every week. We start each episode with affirmations to ensure that regardless of what we discuss and how it may make you feel, we have intentionally started on the highest possible vibration and collectively, intentionally assembled on the same frequency. I need to shift the energy upward, y'all. You are always welcome to repeat after me or to use this time to state your own affirmations. I am loved. I deserve love. I deserve love I understand. I deserve love I feel. I deserve love I recognize immediately. I am heard. I am understood. I communicate my needs clearly. I listen to understand. I give the way I expect to receive. I give abundantly. I receive abundantly. I fill my cup first and pour from the overflow. I remove myself from environments where my needs aren't met. I remove myself from environments where reciprocity isn't offered. I am free because I've done the work. My peace is mine. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Let me tell you something. I had to chill because I was about to go in on those affirmations. You hear me? I started getting excited. Just know that the affirmation album is coming and I am excited as you are. So trust me when I say it is on the way. Let's jump right into this episode because y'all, today's been a day. So anyway, I had a friend who was in a relationship, and the relationship that they were in, initially I thought it was hard to describe. But when I thought about it, it was just simply one-sided. So we're going to call my friend A and we're going to call their partner B. So A and B loved each other deeply. And the people that were around them, they knew how they felt for one another because of conversation that was had, because of the quick moments or the intimate gestures that were exchanged. Their embraces were very warm, very loving, and the security and protection in the embrace was visible from both sides. But for those on the inside of the relationship, at least on person A's side, it was very clear that there were discrepancies. From A's perspective, it was clear that while they deeply loved their partner and wanted for the relationship to work, while they were trying to do any and everything to make it work, even going as far as to sacrifice their rest, to sacrifice their peace, because they really didn't have any peace, they were tolerating what was happening, but they didn't agree with it and they weren't happy. A was trying hard not to be hasty and just discard it or throw it away and say, you know what? I'm good on this. You could go fly a kite, because to me, this is not what a relationship is supposed to look like. But even at the willingness to sacrifice themselves and stay in the relationship, there was awkwardness and discomfort, especially around A meeting B's cronies and B introducing A as their relationship partner, their significant other, all of the standard titles that we use. I'm being intentionally vague. And the cronies being like, oh yeah, I've heard so much about you. Having been introduced with a title would really confound and perplex A. And then they'd be like trying to figure out, why would you refer to me in this way? And this was based on the fact that from A's perspective, it seemed like they were only in a relationship in theory. It was like A and B are in a relationship and people know they're in a relationship, but A didn't feel that way. A felt single in a situation where somebody was calling them their counterpart. And it was very uncomfortable for A because, for one, when A would try to convey what their issues were to be, A felt like it fell on deaf ears. And that was the drawn conclusion when A would confide in friends. So we would ask A if they spoke to B about how they felt and if they thought any progress was made from the conversation. And A would regularly say, yeah, we talked, we discussed some things, I said this, I said that, and B was receptive. But there would be no visible change after. It still looked the same. The relationship looked the same, as well as the sadness in A's eyes. They would barely speak unless they were in the same space, but they were rarely in the same space. So it was more like the foundation of their relationship was predicated on B's access to rely on A, and not only A's ability, but A's willingness to be used. And while A never minded giving of themselves because they really are that Johnny on the spot kind of friend, A seemed to be pouring and pouring, but never from the overflow, and pouring out, but never being replenished. So from the outside, it looked like B was so in love because of all that A could do for them. I've been in a relationship, not quite like that, but where the door to communication was always open, but only one of us was willing to walk through it. And I think a lot of us can relate to that awkwardness of being in the same space, not talking about anything, but it is abundantly clear that there are a million thoughts running around your partner's head. One person takes the lead and actively asks, okay, what's going on? What are you thinking about? And the other partner either lies and says nothing, or in my case, he would run me in circles talking some nonsense in an effort to wear me out from asking questions. And it wouldn't make the questions go away, but it did make me less and less interested in putting effort into the relationship. So for the little time we did have together, a good part of our alone time was spent in silence. Now, what was crazier still was how others that were close to him responded to me. I can remember one of his employees intervening in a conversation between myself and another of his employees that was dangerously close to getting disrespectful. And employee one's reaction was to warn employee two that old boy's reaction to me being disrespected would turn into a bad day quickly. I can remember looking at employee one with the same perplexity as A would look at B's cronies. I was thinking, and I think I even verbalized something to the effect of, like, what does that even mean? Because you act like your mans would jump to my defense. You act like he got my back. And employee one acted like that because the conversation in my absence was very different from the conversation with me. The conversation in my absence was all about how great and amazing I was, and he would do anything for me, while the conversation with me, if I could drag something out of him, wasn't much to go by. So this intense, loving, protective, I would do anything for this woman feeling that he allegedly had, I didn't know anything about it. It wasn't what I felt. It wasn't the conversation that we had. It wasn't even the behavior in our most intimate circle. There wasn't too much that he did that indicated to me that this was what it would be should the necessary occur. But to his cronies, to his peers and his friends, that was the conversation that was being had. It was like, go left and I'm going to get you right. Like, I don't care who you talk about, how you talk about them or what you do. But for that particular one over there, I'd be willing to catch a charge or even willing to risk death. Why this walk down memory lane and all of these stories? It is important in relationships to understand what you're feeling versus what was communicated versus what was received are three very different things. And please note, this is not going to be an episode on love languages, although I definitely think we could spend some time talking about that. This man, much like B, felt something from me that did not translate in his actions or his communication from my perspective. And it's important for me to state that, because someone will always stand on the outside and opine about how you should feel based on what they perceive. I'm not wearing shorts because you feel like it's too hot for pants. Meanwhile, I got goosebumps on my legs and I feel cold. When you're on the outside, you can have an opinion, but it only weighs as much as it weighs. As an example of feeling versus communicated versus received. In my scenario, old boy felt like a protector, communicated to others that he would protect me, but I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel like he had my back no matter what. Now, whether that was because he was from the school of thought that if I'm still here, you should be able to ascertain or surmise that I'm not going anywhere and that I got you, I don't know. And really, it's of non-import, because the one person that needed to understand that didn't. So, beloved, first, this message is for everyone. It is not gender specific. So everyone needs to write this down. Being a good person does not make you a good partner. Clear, concise, honest communication, action with and behind your words, and continuous effort makes you a good partner. Being there is not the equivalent of showing up. Do you get that? Like, the set is here and it's always here, but I'm the one that shows up. So while the set is nice to look at and it might add visual appeal to the scenery, that's the only value it has. Decoration. Me showing up, me moving the set around, me creating and editing the content, me reviewing the finished product and seeing what was done well and what could have been or needs to be done better next time. That's the work. That's where the value is. That's what makes the show a show. That's what keeps the engagement. And it's the same thing in relationships. In a solo production, me doing all the work makes all the sense. But if there's a production team and I'm still doing all the work while the other team member is sitting there watching me flail and fail, but doing the bare minimum to contribute to the success of the production, at some point, beloved, you'll be getting your walking papers, because why am I in partnership if I'm the only active partner? Because the other partner chooses to do the least or nothing at all, time and again. Why be in a relationship if we can't relate? Back to A, the conversation B was having with everyone was about how to the edges of the earth B would go for A and how in love B was with A. However, when it came time to show and prove those things, it was seldom the case. If A want to talk, B ain't got no time. A want to spend time, B ain't got no time. Unless B needed something, their communication was predicated on A initiating the conversation. If A didn't reach out, they wouldn't speak. And to B, there was nothing wrong with that. That, to B, was a healthy, happy, effective relationship. A relationship where you spend no time, and the only time you do spend talking is when A says, we need to talk, or I need to talk to you about something. And even then, B would rush A if B felt there was something more urgent or pressing to do. So if A needed to talk to somebody about something personal, B wasn't the first to know. In fact, B was usually around one of the last to know because A would have already spoken to everybody else they felt supported by before even considering telling B. Because who wants to be hurt more when they're already in a hurting space? And that dismissal and rejection was hurtful to A, but B couldn't, wouldn't, or didn't see it. B didn't show the type of availability that A needed. So when B introduced A to others and was like, this is the love of my life, A's mind, and by default, A's face was like, who? Where are they? Let me meet them. Because how am I the love of your life and you can't make time to talk or time to spend? The love of your life and everyone that knows us up close knows our relationship is in shambles, but you? And from the friend's perspective, they hear so much good about you, so they don't get why you don't know the extent of your partner's love. But to you, it's kind of like hearsay. I don't see what you've heard in action. So what the onlookers may have perceived based on whatever was presented to them, while it's relevant to them, it's only relevant to them. It's not about what it looks like to others. It's about what it looks and feels like to the people in the relationship. And a note on that, when you're listening to your friends, when they're venting about what's going on in their relationships, the truth is in the questions asked. If you're not asking questions, you're probably not getting the whole story. So when they sell you this story of victimhood, make sure you ask questions before you take a side. If you're not going to ask questions, stay neutral and give arguments for both sides. Could it be this? Did you ask that? What exactly did they say? How did you arrive at this? Lastly, remember that your opinion is just that, an opinion. It's not the standard. If you offer advice, they are under no obligation to take it. If you don't agree with the relationship, don't beat them up for staying in it. Advise them that you no longer want to hear about it. Simple. You ever have to work on a team project where in order for the team to win or be successful, everyone had to give 100% and be totally committed. And there was one on the team that would say they were committed, but when it came time to get things done, they wouldn't show up. They couldn't make the conference calls. They couldn't get to the meeting. They couldn't get the emails out in a timely fashion. Like, no matter what the requisite, they just couldn't show there was something to back their verbal commitment. Or for what they did show up with, it wasn't enough to convince you that they were indeed committed. And the frustration you experienced was predominantly because the responsibilities being assigned to that teammate or the expectations of that teammate, while they may have only been tasked to that individual, seeing the task or tasks through or meeting the expectation or expectations serve to benefit the team. And while the team is doing everything to come out on top, the team will still fail because of the inadequacy of the one. That's what it was like. So when the conversation became, do you understand that this person would do anything for you? The answer was no. That's not what I saw, especially when it came to the things that I asked. And my asks were to benefit the team or our home, not me specifically. Now, in the case of A, the knowing was in theory. The knowing was in conversation. A said they knew it, but their countenance said they had hella doubts. I don't want to talk too much longer on this, okay? But I do want you to consider this. Often in relationships, we hear the word nagging, which means constantly harassing someone to do something. If your relationship is healthy, nagging shouldn't even be a recognizable concept because you shouldn't have to be asked to the point you feel harassed. And if your partner has to constantly ask you for healthy communication, y'all ain't in it for the same reasons, but you'll both be out of it if you keep playing. Now, whether it's taking out the garbage, mowing the lawn, or having a heart-to-heart, it's highly probable that you were asked because your partner needed help to get it done, or because they needed it done in order to do the next thing. Help me help you. If the only time you're willing to do something is when it's important to you, and it doesn't matter if it's important to me, You're selfish. And unwillingness definitely translates as unimportance or insignificance. Stop expecting selflessness when that's not something you're willing to offer. And note, being willing to offer or do everything I don't want or need is also selfish. Being willing to help with the things that require the least amount of help is also selfish. Compromising to ask and perform what needs to be done before starting something that you don't want interrupted, that's fair. Assessing what needs to be done on your own, before starting something else, that's also fair. But to call someone a nag because you avoided what needed to be done like you thought it would magically disappear, or expecting someone to wait until you get around to it and not ask you repeatedly, that's unreasonable. Last thing on that, as much as it irritates you to be asked to do something more than once, is as much as it irritates the person asking. So let's get it done so we can go forward. Back to the topic, what you feel versus what you communicate. I love you, I do anything for you, versus what's received. If I ask for talk time and communication, you don't have time, or you clam up and you shut down. If I ask for quality time to just spend together, it's no. Your words are unbacked by your actions, but your expectation is that I know, believe, and or accept your words as irrefutable truth. That's unrealistic. And worse yet is when you want your partner to believe in you as a partner based on how amazing you are to your friends. I have said this before and I will say it again. No one wants to watch you be a superhero to everyone else when you're barely showing up as mediocre to them. Being willing to drop everything for someone else, but expecting your partner to be okay with getting whatever's left over after you've saved the world, that's crazy. The person you're building a life with should never be getting scraps. Let me say again that this is not gender specific. This is a people problem. Men and women are guilty of it. I've been guilty of it, and not so much in romantic relationships, but definitely in familial relationships. There have been countless times when I've definitely been better to people I called friends than people I'm related to. Now, the why definitely varies from relationship to relationship. Sometimes it's based on our history. Sometimes it's based on the expectations of the other person. And sometimes, shameful as it is, it's based on me just not doing a good job. And so often we laud ourselves for how great a job we do with other relationships and expect some kind of carryover merit. It does not work that way. At the place where you realize you're falling short, you have two options. Either acknowledge it and say, look, this is part of my character and I'm going to always ride for and prioritize my friends. And if you can't accept that, we're not a good match. Or actively work to correct it. If you're of the mentality that these counterparts come and go, but your friends are forever, keep in mind, your mentality is part of the reason that these counterparts come and go. If you're positioning your friends to be there, if the relationship doesn't work out, you're already making provision for the relationship not to work out. So at some point, it won't work out because that's how you structured it. But this episode isn't about the law of attraction. So we're going to park that right there for now. We'll come back to it down the line. If what you're feeling doesn't match what you're communicating, you will have problems. If what you're feeling matches what you're communicating, but it doesn't match with what I'm receiving, we still have problems. There's still a disconnect. And we both need to be part of trying to identify what or where the disconnect is. It's not just a me issue because of how I feel. It's a you issue because at some point you're going to feel frustrated because you feel like you're doing everything and it's never enough. You may feel like you're giving more than what's deserved. You may feel like there's no reciprocity, and then a problem that was already big enough metastasizes into something that needs radical treatment to correct. And usually by that point, no one wants to put that much work in to save it. Another thing on effort, if it feels like an obligation, it feels like it's obligation based and not authentic or organic, that is breeding ground for conflict. And just so you can see the correlation between personal and professional, let me give you a workplace example. What I feel. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the setup of the workplace. What I communicate. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the setup of the workplace. What my coworkers and supervisors receive. Complaints about the work, complaints about the customers, lateness, disinterest, least amount of effort. What I've said I feel is not at all what the people who work around me discern or observe, because someone who loves their job and loves what they do would not exhibit these kinds of behaviors. And if addressed or confronted about this, how do I sound saying, well, I don't know what you want me to tell you, or what you want me to do? If I want my feelings to be believed, my actions have to be in alignment or follow suit with my words. Y'all, we covered some ground today, okay? These are the takeaways. Your feelings, your communication, and what the receiver receives cannot be incongruous. If you really want the relationship to work, irrespective of the relationship type, your ego cannot be in your way. Complaining to others about how much you're doing or giving instead of asking your partner and attentively, actively listening to their answers will almost never resolve any issues with your partner. You got to talk to the person that's in it with you. You got to listen. And you got to see if y'all are really compatible. Loving someone doesn't make you compatible with them. Wanting something to work doesn't mean it will. And wanting something to work your way when you're not in it alone is straight up self-serving. If that's how you're thinking, you might need to be alone, because the only person you want to see happy is you. You may need to watch this one again. You may need to watch it a few times. If you're booed up, you might should watch this with your partner, especially if this is how you feel and you don't know how to say it. I don't mind starting the conversation for you. Just pick up where I leave off. Comment below. Send your listener letters to my brilliant friend passion@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, share. Turn on your notifications. Help me help others help themselves. And I think that's it for housekeeping. Donations can be made via my Podbean page, my Linktree, or my Cash App. Links are in the description. The Get You Right Guru is signing off. Y'all go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. Be armed and empowered with knowledge. Know the importance of differentiating between what you feel, what you communicate, and what the other person received. In all things, be passionate. I'll see you later.